All right, the immune system. Lots of big words here, lots of words that are quite similar, so, pause it if you're getting confused. Okay, what is the immune system dealing with? Well, the world is full of things that want to kill you, and we call the things that want to kill you pathogens, which I'm going to represent with this circle with a P inside. My pathogens, I've got little flags on top of them, little chemical markers that show to the rest of the world what they are and who they are. So I'm going to represent that with a little flag, okay? So my antigen is a chemical marker that tells the world, what kind of a cell you are. So this pathogen has got that particular type of antigen. Now that particular type of antigen is completely different to any antigen you have in your body. So it's quite useful for our body to figure out what we have to kill. So the antigens are on the outside, and we use those to identify the invaders into our system. And there's two different types of immediate responders, and we call those lymphocytes. The first kind of lymphocyte is a B lymphocyte, which I'm going to represent with this great big B. My B lymphocyte is a white blood cell. Now, you can't say white blood cell if you're doing higher tier. Sometimes they let it, sometimes they don't. So just remember that lymphocyte is a white blood cell. It's called a lymphocyte because it's a cell that's made in your lymph system, in your lymphatic system. But we can, for the time being, we can just think of them as white blood cells. So my B lymphocytes are made by my body in response to a weird antigen being introduced to the system. So these things are created. My B lymphocyte then is gonna make little bullets. These little bullets, which are usually represented by sideways Y's, are called antibodies. Imaginatively named because they are anti-foreign bodies. They're things which will latch onto antigens of a different organism, of an invader or a pathogen, and be used by the body to identify them as being bad. So that's the first response, my B lymphocyte. The second immediate responder is just a brilliant little cell called a phagocyte. I love them just because it's very clever. It's not very high tech at all. The phagocyte will engulf and eat the pathogen. So I mean, if you're going to kill something, the best way apparently to do it is to just to ingest it and then dissolve it. So I've got my phagocyte and my B lymphocyte, and they're the first things that are made in response to an antigen being introduced from the environment. Now, these are the first things that are made, and because we are biologists, we can't just call it the first things that are made. We're going to call these the primary response. And because this is the primary response of the immune system, we're going to call it the primary immune response. Because the first thing that your body does is kill the little sucker so that it can't cause you any harm. So that's a primary immune response. Now, the thing is, this pathogen, let's say it's something quite ubiquitous, like, let's say it's a cold virus, then you don't really want to be affected by this cold again, because making my B lymphocytes and my phagocytes, that takes time. It takes a lot of time. And in fact, it takes the amount of time that you're sick for. So if you're sick for 2 or 3 days, you can't come into school. The reason is your body's fighting it off by making these B lymphocytes, producing antibodies, which will bind to my antigen, and the phagocytes, which they're going to ingest, engulf, and kill it. So to reduce the amount of time that's necessary for that to happen, your body also produces another kind of lymphocyte called a memory lymphocyte. Imaginatively called because it's a memory of the immune response you've already made. I'm going to symbolize that with an M. So this is my memory lymphocyte. The memory lymphocyte, again, is a white blood cell, and it kind of hangs around in your body and waits for this antigen, this pathogen, to come back into the body. Now, if you imagine the B lymphocyte as being like a pistol, shooting antibodies at the pathogen, your M lymphocyte is like a machine gun, which makes lots and lots of antibodies very, very quickly and kills the pathogen before it can divide and spread. So it can also send antibodies out to the invader, but many, many more, in much less time, and it destroys the bacteria before it can multiply. Now, if this is my primary immune system, that's the first thing that happens. My second response, my secondary immune response comes after. The secondary immune response is something that happens in response to the pathogen being introduced again. And it's very clever. It means that if you ever get sick again with the same antigen, with the same pathogen, you're not going to get as sick. In fact, you probably wouldn't even notice it happening. Now, this immune system, it can be used by us to vaccinate us against diseases that we haven't actually come into contact yet. And how that happens is quite clever. So this is the pathogen, and inside the pathogen there's some DNA, and that DNA is what causes my pathogen to be a pathogen. Now, if I remove that DNA, if I just have the shell of the pathogen, then it's harmless. There's nothing in there at all that's going to hurt you. It just leaves the antigen on the outside that identifies for the body that this is a pathogen that wants to kill us. Now, if I introduce this into the body, the exact same response will happen. You will attack and kill the pathogen that actually isn't that scary at all, that isn't going to cause you any harm whatsoever. You're going to produce B lymphocytes and antibodies for that pathogen. The phagocytes are going to ingest it in your primary immune response, not system. And your secondary immune response is going to be in your body. Your memory lymphocytes are going to be there ready to attack when you do finally get introduced to this pathogen. So if it happens naturally, if you get a cold and that pathogen goes into your body, it's called you are immunized. It's an immunization reaction, that your body is now immune to that particular pathogen. If you do it unnaturally, if you introduce a pathogen without the DNA, just the antigen coating, then you've got vaccinated. A lot of people say that vaccinations are dangerous, that you're ingesting scary diseases into you and you shouldn't do that. Well, they're just wrong because they don't know the science. The science is that there's no DNA inside my pathogen, so it can't reproduce, it can't cause you any harm. It is just the little antigen on top, the little flag that tells your body that it's there, and it stops you getting sick in the future. Isn't that very clever?